This One's Wife. The Fake Pregnancy. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I think it is fair to say that perhaps one of the most controversial aspects of the existence of This One's Wife is whether she faked the pregnancies, either one or both, in relation to Archie and Lilibet. There are differing schools of thought. There are those who believe that she carried the children and gave birth to them, and these suggestions are nothing but deranged conspiracy theories from haters. There are others who go to the other end of the spectrum, who are of the opinion that she didn't carry the children because they simply don't exist, and that photoshopped pictures, artificial intelligence created videos, the hiring of actors are utilised to show two children who are purportedly Archie and Lily, but they don't actually exist. Then there is a middle route, whereby there are people who believe that the children exist, but that This One's Wife didn't carry them, and they came from a surrogate. There is a considerable fascination with this topic. For some, it's as a consequence of the fact that they see that the children ought not to be in the line of succession because they weren't born of the body of This One's Wife, and that must be corrected. For others, it is simply the case that she has lied, and alongside many of the other lies that she's issued, this perhaps is the biggest. It's also the case that it has provided many people with the material to undertake detective work, analysing pictures where they claim that a moon bump was used, analysing video footage where they say that it has slipped or that it can be heard popping. The, of course, notorious twerking video, which resulted in many people going over the line to say, no, she wasn't pregnant, there's no way you'd be able to do that, and it didn't look natural. All of this naturally provides fuel for This One's Wife as a consequence of people commenting about it. It also means that she faces repeated challenges. The mainstream media has ducked away from the topic. From time to time, they will acknowledge the fact that these theories exist and invariably label them as conspiracy theories, but there has been no meaningful investigation by the media with regard to the question of whether the pregnancies have been faked. Thus, many people remain vested interest in the car crash that is This One's Wife because they want this to be unearthed. They want that to be exposed. For others, they want to know one way or the other. And whether that day will come, well, very much is up in the air. I've explained hitherto that it is not beyond the realms of possibility that a narcissist such as This One's Wife would engage in the chicanery of faking a pregnancy. The reason being is that she operates in a deluded world whereby, with no sense of conscience or guilt, she's not held back from engaging in such activity. That she would want it to appear that she has given birth, because the suggestion that she'd failed to do so would see her as something less. As we know, there are many people that have surrogacy births and are upfront about doing so. But for a somatic narcissist such as This One's Wife, the failure for her to carry the children and give birth to them would be seen as her being less than a woman, and in such circumstances would be a threat to her control. Hence, there is a motivation for her to fake the pregnancies. Furthermore, there is the issue in relation to the line of succession, and the inclusion of the children in that, along with the titles, is hugely important to her because it matters to her as a narcissist by way of character trait acquisition. Accordingly, whilst it does not mean that she did it, we need clear evidence to support that, what it does mean is that by virtue of her being a narcissist, there is an increased risk that she could go to the lengths of faking a pregnancy compared to other people. For instance, the fact that many people believe that she was using a doll as Archie when she was photographed in Canada. Many people having analysed that footage repeatedly to point out the way that the baby was hanging points to it being a doll rather than an actual child. The supposed christening photographs have similarly come under scrutiny, with certain people claiming that Harry was pressing down so that his knuckles were whitened. You will have your own views about it. There are theories which have some credibility, others are really way out there. But interestingly, amidst the continued interest about this one's wife and the possibility that she faked one or both pregnancies, there came news that a so-called young mum in Scotland has admitted to bizarrely faking her entire pregnancy and even trying to pass off a silicone doll as her newborn. Certainly, this story has parallels with what this one's wife is accused of. Let's have a look further at what went on and see what this woman might be. Kira Cousins, aged 22, issued a grovelling apology on Tuesday after her massive hoax was uncovered and started spreading rapidly across social media. "I'm so sorry," she wrote in a now-deleted Instagram story obtained by the Daily Record. "I wasn't pregnant. There was no baby. I made it up and kept it going way too far. I faked scans, messages, a whole birth story, and acted like a doll was a real baby." Cousins had managed to fool her loved ones, including who she claimed was the baby's father, into believing she was pregnant and had given birth to a little girl, who she named Bonnie Lee Joyce on October 10th. Cousins sported a growing prosthetic bump to fuel the ruse and held a lavish gender reveal party in the weeks before the birth. Photos on social media captured Cousins smiling and posing as she cradled the bump throughout the so-called pregnancy. As part of the elaborate hoax, Cousins also posted images of scans and even claimed tests had detected a heart defect in the baby. Cousins then claimed she gave birth alone and promptly started showing off the newborn, which ultimately turned out to be a reborn doll. The wild sham came crashing down, though, when her mum found the doll in her bedroom last week. Just prior to coming clean, Cousins went as far as telling the supposed father that her newborn had died. The story quickly spilled out on social media, as friends and loved ones branded her a serial liar. Some loved ones have since claimed they started becoming suspicious when no one had heard the baby cry, and that Cousins wouldn't let anyone touch the newborn. In her bizarre apology, Cousins defended those she'd fooled into believing the doll was actually real. In everyone else's defence, the doll could move. You could change the facial features, arms and legs, she said. You could feed the doll, making it pee or poo. So when no one is close to the doll, it does look real. No one was looking at my baby expecting it to be a doll. Well, no, most people don't, do they? Reborn dolls, which can retail for as much as $2,000, are hyper-realistic baby replicas that are often used as a form of therapy for those struggling with infertility, infant loss, or dementia. The dolls have become part of a cosplay trend in recent years in which people pass the dolls off as real children, going as far as breastfeeding them and taking pictures with them out in public. Accordingly, this one's wife accused of the utilisation of a doll, the utilisation of fake scans, the utilisation of a moon bump. And here we have a young Scottish lady who did precisely that. What does this tell us about Kira Cousins and her motivations for doing so? Well, there are potentially a number of outcomes in respect of this behaviour. The first is that she's not a particularly bright individual that thought it would be fun to do this, and then once she started, the attention that she received was rather addictive, that she enjoyed it, and therefore she kept going. And then, because she'd gone so far, she felt that she couldn't admit what she'd done, so she just kept going along with it, trapped within the artifice of her own creation. And then eventually she was exposed with all of the recriminations and criticism that follows. But simply, it was a lark to her, a bit of attention-seeking that she took way too far because she felt that she couldn't turn it around. That is one possibility to explain her behaviour. The other might be, and this isn't reported, but it possibly the case that she lost a child, and therefore this was her way of dealing with it, and, as a consequence, utilised this, but was deceitful about it. Accordingly, the grief as a consequence of losing that child reduces her emotional empathy to cause her to behave in this deceitful manner. It is a possibility, but I suspect that's not applicable, because if it were, I would suggest that she would have admitted that in the so-called grovelling apology, or a family member would explain that she'd hitherto lost a child. So whilst it would be a possibility to explain such behaviour, I don't think that it's necessarily applicable in this instance. The other might be that she has some kind of mental health issue that has driven her to engage in this role-playing. Nothing is mentioned in respect of that, but it is a possibility whereby she was influenced and affected by a particular mental health condition that caused her to engage in this behaviour. An alternative is that she is a narcissist, detached from reality, that engaged in the creation of a fake pregnancy in order to assert control over friends, family, the supposed father, to draw fuel from them by way of responses, sympathy, support, delight at the child's birth, and to gain residual benefits. For instance, gifts at a baby shower, gifts on the arrival of the supposed child's birth. And as a consequence of the fact that she has no sense of guilt, no sense of conscience, she went along with it, that the attention provided her with fuel, that she had this fantasy of having a child and saw nothing wrong with doing this. It is a possibility, but we can't label Kira Cousins as a narcissist because we don't know anything about other behaviours that she has engaged in. The only information we have goes around the issue of this fake pregnancy and the fake child. We don't know anything about the way that she has behaved previously. This is to be contrasted with this one's wife, whereby we know she is a narcissist because we have realms of evidence of other behaviour which occurred way before the children came along. Thus, with this one's wife, it remains up in the air as to whether her pregnancies were fake, with a differing of views, but it remains a distinct possibility as a consequence of certain evidential queries that remain extant, and the fact that we know that she is a narcissist, which increases the possibility of her engaging in such behaviour. As for Kira Cousins, we know that she's faked a pregnancy because she has admitted as such, and the evidence shows that she has done so. Her motivation for doing so remains unclear. She could be a narcissist, but there isn't enough evidence to support an analysis and determination to confirm that was the case, and it might just be that she's a young woman who was very stupid and engaged in a deceitful practice and took it too far because she felt that she couldn't turn it around. Having started it, it effectively got legs and carried on, and she felt that she had to see it through, and it was only when she was exposed, not by her admission, but because her mother found the doll, that it came to an end, and she would have kept it going because she felt that she had to. What are your views in relation to Kira Cousins and the motivation for her behaviour? And also, what are your thoughts in relation to this one's wife and the allegations of a fake pregnancy? Let me know in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.